Tonight's class is a very special class because sometimes we teach a class about something that affects some people. You know, some people have anger issues. So you take a class about anger regulation, and some people identify with it because they have anger issues, they have tempers. And sometimes you take a class about depression, and some people have feelings about depression. You know, some people suffer from depression. But not everybody suffers from depression. Not everybody suffers from anger. And sometimes we talk about other emotions, anxiety, because our whole series is about emotions, past, present, and future. But some people suffer from anxiety, but not all people suffer from anxiety. Tonight's class is for everybody. It's for everybody. It's for me. It's for you. Tonight's class is about accepting your reality. We all have realities that we have to accept, whether we like them or whether we don't like them. Sometimes our reality is such that it's wonderful. This is amazing. This is so great. I'm at a party. I'm having a great time. I feel so loved. I'm among my family members. I feel so loved. I feel really good. That's a great reality. That's an easy one to accept. But what about if your reality is not so great? What about if your reality is that you're not feeling well? What about if your reality is that you have COVID? What if your reality is that you don't like the people that you're living with? What if your reality is something you don't like about yourself? Something about yourself that you don't like. So what are you supposed to do about that kind of a reality? It's your reality. And there's none of us, there's not one person that does not have to accept a certain reality about themselves or about someone that they love or about something that they're going through in life that they don't want to accept. I don't like that I have curly hair. It's a reality. I have curly hair. I don't like that I'm heavy. It's a reality. I'm heavy. I don't like that. I remember as a child, I did not like that my parents had such heavy European accents. I loved the idea. I was actually jealous of my friends who had American parents that didn't have this heavy accent that was so obvious. It was so obvious that my parents were survivors. But that was my reality. Or my mother was very heavy when I was a child. I was very embarrassed to bring friends home because she was so heavy. But that was my reality. I had to accept my reality. So we all have, think about it for a moment. Take a moment, think about yourself. We all have a reality that we have to accept about ourselves. So what do you do if you have a reality about yourself and you don't particularly like it? So the first thing I would say is that touching base with that reality, identifying the reality, identifying it, I is we've talked about this many times. That is already 90% of the way there. If you can identify your reality, then that's really good. Like, what is it? I don't like that my mother is heavy. I don't like that my father, I used to be very embarrassed that my father had the numbers on his arm. Could you imagine? Today, we look at our Holocaust survivors and we say, oh, we have to stand up for Holocaust survivors. But as a child, my father would never wear a long sleeved shirt. He always wore short sleeves, always. If it was 10 degrees outside, he wore a short sleeved shirt because he wanted everybody to see the numbers on his arms. A9154. Those were the numbers on his arms. But me, as a child, I was so embarrassed. Like, Ta, why don't you put it? You know, I couldn't say it, but I would think, like, why can't he just cover the arm? So as children, we have realities that we don't have a choice. We have to accept them. We don't have the power to control them. So I think that I identifying the reality and sometimes maybe even writing it down, saying, this is bothering me. Whatever it is, whatever that reality is, it bothers me. That is a way of taking the reality from a place that's in your head and you're concretizing it. You're making it concrete. You're writing it down. It's becoming real. It's a reality. And then what happens once you write it down, you can start to deal with it. You can start to have solutions about it. So let's say if I could write down, well, I feel embarrassed that my mother is so heavy and people come to the house and I feel embarrassed about it. If that reality, I'm sorry. If that reality is written down and it's concrete, we can start to deal with it. So that's what I liked. I always like that idea that if you write down reality. Now, let's go to the next step. You've identified it. You've identified what it is that you don't particularly like. Let's say you're a person who's handicapped. Let's say you're a person who can't keep up with what's going on around you. You're not as good a reader as everybody else. You're not as good at cooking as some other people. And that's your reality. I want to be a better cook. That's my reality. But if you write it down, it's concrete. You have the reality. So what is something that you can do? I love the idea of these concrete solutions. I'm a very concrete person, and I love the idea of a concrete solution. So if I have a reality that I don't really like, and it's my reality, it's hard for me to deal with, I will go to a person. I'll either go to a therapist, I'll go to somebody I respect, I'll go to a person that I feel can be more objective than I am. I'll go to somebody who I can say to them, I feel so embarrassed about these numbers on my father's arm. And that person would say, no, you should be so proud. You should be so proud that your father survived as a Jew. He could have made believe he wasn't Jewish. He could have said, you know what, I'll just hide out and I won't be a Jew and then I won't be killed. But he didn't. He felt proud of his Judaism, so proud that he wanted everybody to see it. Now imagine if I could hear that from somebody, if somebody could say that to me in an objective way, then I would see things completely differently. So I would say that the first thing to do is that when you're in your own reality and you don't really particularly like your reality, if you could talk to somebody that is an objective person and they could talk back to you, they will be more objective than you could be because you cannot be objective enough. It's very hard to think of a solution when you are the one with the problem. I'm going to give you a very, 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 very personal example. Very personal. Right now, my reality is that my mother is aging. She's 92 years old and she is progressively aging. I'm watching it happen very, very, very quickly. Her walk is slower. Her smile is not as quick as it used to be. Everything about her is just, she's aging. It's my reality. Now, in my reality of her aging, what happens to me? What happens to me is I feel incredibly guilty. I feel like I should be doing more for her. I could be, why am I not with her? I should maybe sit with her and stay with her 24 hours a day, be there 7 days a week. And then maybe her aging won't happen so quickly. And then I feel very guilty. I feel ashamed that I'm not with her. I feel guilty. I feel so sad. It's just a very, very, very difficult reality. And I can't find my way. This is the truth. As I live this, I'm living this right now. This is my truth. I am submerged as I speak to you, even. I am submerged in guilt that I am not able to make my mother's life better. It's very, very hard. So I don't know what to do. What do I do? So I go to somebody who's objective person, and I say, I feel terrible. I feel consumed with guilt. I can't sleep at night. When I'm in my bed at night, I feel like I should be in her room. I feel like I should be by her bed. I feel like I should be there in case she has to go up and go to the bathroom. I feel like I should be there in case she wants a glass of water. I feel I can't sleep at night. I feel like I'm not doing enough for my mother. So I go to an objective person and I say, I don't know what to do. I'm submerged with guilt about my mother, right? But that's my reality. The reality is she is older. She is 92 years old. She is aging very quickly. It's a real reality. I can't escape the reality. I can't make believe it's not happening. It is really happening. All of this is really happening. So I go to an objective person That's what we need to do. We go to an objective person and I say, I don't know what to do. I'm so sad. I'm consumed with sadness. I'm crying all the time. And that objective person, what do? They're objective. So they say to me, let's talk about this. Your mother is how old? She's 92. 92. Has she lived a good life? She's lived an incredible life. Have you been a good daughter? I've been a really good daughter. And as I hear these words from this objective person, of them saying to me, well, you know what? Are you giving her the best care possible? I am giving her the best care possible. Well, you're doing everything. Isn't it possible? Is it possible that from talking to this objective person and hearing concrete stuff, concrete solutions? What's my concrete solution? My concrete solution is I'm doing it. I'm doing everything that I could possibly do. I'm, are you giving her a good life? Yes. Are you taking care of her in the best way? Yes. Is she dressed nicely every day? Yes. Does she smell nice? Is she showered and clean? Yes. So there I have heard from somebody else that I'm doing good things. And then what happens? Instead of me being in my reality and not liking my reality, is it possible that I can even love my reality? That I could go from accepting the reality, which I wasn't accepting. I was not accepting the reality. I was just consumed with sadness. I couldn't think. I couldn't see clearly. I was consumed. But suddenly, why am I loving my reality? Because this objective person, they said to me, they pointed out all these things. They said, your mother is 92. She is so well taken care of. She's clean. She's nice. She's happy, right? So what happens? Suddenly I'm thinking, wow, I have so many friends who lost their mother when they were 60 years old or 70 years old or 80 years old. My mother is happy at 92 years old. Wow, I'm living a reality that I love. How many people can I talk to and tell them the story or say to them, oh, I just spoke to my mother on the phone. And you know what they'll say? I wish I had a mother to talk to. I wish I had a mother to talk to. You're so lucky. And suddenly, what's happening? I'm loving my reality. I'm loving it. So that's where we're going tonight. We're going from accepting our reality. How do we accept our reality? We identify it. We identify our reality, whatever that reality may be. We identify the reality. And then what do? We concretize it. We make it real. We identify it, we make it real. And then what do? We go and we talk to an objective person about our reality. And maybe that objective person will say, wow, like the case with my mother, you should be celebrating. Can you internalize that, Dr. Faye? Can you celebrate that your mother is alive and well and happy and walking around at 92 when other people have lost their mothers? Yes. Now, but however, maybe that person will say, you know what, Dr. Faye? Take some time. You can cry about it. What is it that I'm going to share this with you also. What am I crying about? What is it that I'm really crying about? A lot of people, they're not so compulsive about taking care of their mothers. Some people, they put their mothers in nursing homes. They won't go and visit their mothers. They won't really pay that much attention to their mothers, right? They're not really doing it. But me as a child, I have always been this way. I've always tried to be extra good, overcompensate, try to make my Holocaust father really happy. He was so sad. I tried to make him laugh all the time. I wouldn't give up until I got him to laugh. It was just so important to me. So I think also that sometimes maybe our sadness is not coming from the reality that we're living right at this moment. Maybe our sadness is coming from an accumulation of the reality that we're repeating over and over again. So maybe my sadness is not so much about my mother right now. Maybe it's an accumulation of I should have done more for her then. It's just about being able to do more. We always talk about reconditioning. How do you recondition a behavior? How do you make yourself have a new behavior? It's so hard. I wish I could recondition myself to be more chilled out about it, to be more relaxed about it. You know, it's okay. Relax, she's fine. You don't have to call the aide 100 times a day. Relax. But you know what? I am telling you from my heart. I'm telling you from me, from Dr. Faye, the professional. It is very hard to recondition yourself. Can you do it? I'm trying. I'm trying very hard. I try not to call her 100 times a day. I try to call her only 90 times a day. And then the next day I try to call her only 80 times a day. So it's about reconditioning also. It's reconditioning who you are. And I think that this is like such an important thing about accepting the reality of your life, identifying the reality of your life. Sometimes the reality might be really wonderful. They're great realities. I'm watching Yuri cut an apple and I'm thinking, lucky Yuri. Look at him. He has this beautiful, beautiful wife that just brought him an apple. And he's got this that's accepting a great reality, right? It's wonderful. Now, what happens if Yuri, God forbid, if he cuts his finger and it's bleeding? Well, there's another reality, but that's a horrible reality. But again, if we accept our reality, identify with our reality, and we know where to go with it, what do we do with it? Either we're going to celebrate it, maybe we're going to cry about it. Crying is not a terrible thing. It's a wonderful thing. It means that you are in touch with your emotions. You can be really, really happy and you can be really, really sad. But just the idea that you can feel, that you can touch your emotions, that is a gift that if you have it, or until you get there, when you have it, that is a celebration of life. Being able to be in touch with your emotion, being able to feel your emotion, being able to identify your emotion, being able to express your emotion. The fact that I'm on tonight and that I could talk about my mother and talk about how sad it is for me, I feel like that's a way of me connecting with you. It's my way of expressing my emotion. It doesn't make me worse. It makes me feel better. The idea that we together can share on our emotions. So let me give you another example that I was thinking about. Very, very, very common. Okay. A couple gets married and they want to have children. And because that's what people do, they get married and they have children. And they're married a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. Everybody's having children around them. Everybody's giving birth. All their friends that have gotten married are having children. What is everybody talking about? They're all talking about their baby. They're talking about diapering the baby, who gets up at night, who sleeps through the night, who feeds the baby. And this is actually a true story. And this couple, they don't have children. And that's their reality. The reality is that they can't have children. And I'm thinking of a particular couple at this moment in time that they tried for maybe 7 years to have children and they couldn't have children. And it was very hard. They were very sad. They cried a lot. They prayed a lot, but it just didn't happen. Well, guess what? They decided to have a concrete solution. They decided that they would either adopt a child, they would try to adopt a child, or they would take in a foster child because they wanted to have a child. They wanted to have something. Sure enough, they got very, very lucky and they had a foster child that ended up being a wonderful child and they were able to adopt the child, right? And you know what? Again, they had a reality, horrible reality. They accepted their reality. They came up with a concrete solution. At first, the concrete solution was really about mourning and being sad and very, very sad. And then they concretized and they both decided together, let's have it. Let's take a foster child in. And then there they are. They have a family and they have adopted a child. Well, guess what? You know what they did with that? Where does it come to loving their reality? What's the love? How did they love their reality? You know what they did? They then went back and created groups for people who couldn't have children. And what does that do? That gave the groups a support system. Suddenly, all of these couples that are dealing with this alone in the privacy of their bedroom, crying to each other because they can't share it with anybody. They're not going to tell the people that have children, oh, wow, could you do me a favor and not talk about your children when we're around? It makes us very, very, very sad. It makes us cry. We go home and we cry. Can you not talk about your children? They don't want to do that. But if they're in a group of other people that also don't have children, suddenly they feel comforted. Suddenly they don't feel alone. They don't feel isolated. They feel like, wow, there's other people that are also going through this. And that's what this couple created. They created a group, a support group for people who couldn't have children. And they led the group. They started it. It turned into a very big program. They started the group. And and what did they do? They took their own reality, their horrible reality. They identified it. They concretized it. They did something very positive with it. So can they love their reality? Hello, of course they can. They can very much love their reality. Why? Because look at how many lives they're making better. All of these couples that are in this group, they feel really good because they have other people to talk to and they're not alone. So, you can talk about this in terms of being single as well. Sometimes people don't want to be single anymore at the age of 28 or 30 or 36 or 40 or whatever age they decide that they're ready to be married, right? They don't want to be single. And it's very hard, but they have to accept the reality. The reality is, I am single. That's my reality. And I could sit at home and I could cry about it and I could be sad about it and mourn and think it's terrible. Or I know somebody that actually created an entire pamphlet of what it means to be single. How do I get along in life with being single? So what did they do? They created something concrete, and then suddenly what's happening? You're suddenly loving your reality. You're suddenly feeling like a real hero. I'm doing something absolutely amazing with my reality. So again, I think the steps are accepting your reality, identifying your reality, concretizing your reality, and doing something with it. Doing something with it so that it turns into something where you end up loving your reality. One more example. I don't usually give so many, but tonight I was in the mood of examples. My husband Shlomo. I love talking about Shlomo because he's really my hero. Why? Well, he was my hero in a lot of different ways because of all the mitzvahs that he did, the kindness that he had, and the children of cancer that he took care of, and just all the wonderful things he had. When my husband, Shlomo, was diagnosed with leukemia, that was a reality. That was a reality that he had to accept. And he accepted the reality. I remember the day that he had to tell me about it. We were actually on our way. We were going to Memorial because we used to give out iPads to the little children at Memorial Sloan Kettering, to the children that had cancer. And Shlomo said to me, come and meet me at Memorial. And I thought that I'm going to meet him at Memorial because I was sure that we were going to be giving out iPads at Memorial to the little children. He said, come to my car. We both were parked by Memorial Sloan Kettering, horrible place, but it saves people's lives, but it's a sad place. And he was parked on York Avenue. I was also parked. I'd come with my car. He said, could you come to my car before we go inside? I went to his car and he said, I have to tell you something. I am sick. And I said, no. And he said, yeah, I am sick. And he explained to me what was wrong with him. He accepted the reality that he was sick. He accepted it with no questions, no questions. I could not accept the reality. I said, you're lying. It's not true. He said, no, it is true. I said, it's impossible. It can't possibly be true. Look at you. You don't look sick. You look completely healthy. And also, God would never give you cancer. You're the person that saves everybody from cancer. It's not possible that you're sick. And he said, but I am. And he accepted his reality. I could not. I had to, when we did the bone marrow test, even then, I couldn't accept the reality. It took me a very long time to accept the reality, but he accepted the reality. And over here, Rabbi Katzin, I'm going to let you follow up with this. I think that the reason that Shlomo was able to accept his reality was because he was at a point in his life that I had not achieved yet. He had incredible faith in Hashem. He just believed in Hashem. It did not occur to him for a moment that Hashem was doing something for him that was not a good thing. He never went there. He never went there. He managed to believe And I understand it now because I've grown a lot in terms of my faith in the 7, 8 years that Shlomo's been gone. He managed to believe that he had accomplished what he needed to accomplish in his life, and that Hashem thought that this was his time, and that in the years that he was alive, he wasn't going to make it to 92, not even close, but that Hashem gave him this reality, and that he never had a problem with it. He just absolutely accepted his reality with love, with love. There was never a day that he said the things that I said, which was, how could this be happening? How is it possible? And interesting, when I asked him that question, when I said to him, how is it possible, Shlomo, when it hit me and we were in the hospital and he was very, very sick, I said, there's a mistake over here. I'm the one that should have gotten sick, not you. You're the one that's saving lives. You're the one, I should have. And he answered me and he said, no, right now, this is my time. This is what Hashem wants. Now is your time to start building up mitzvahs. And that became my reality. My reality became that I became the person that started doing mitzvahs. Before that, it was Shlomo's reality. I was just his assistant. But then it became my reality. And right now in my life, that is my reality. I accept my reality, and people will say, how can you accept your reality? You're a widow. Aren't you sad? Aren't you mourning? Aren't you sad? But yet, no, I'm loving my reality. What am I loving? I'm loving that I can take my reality and turn it into something so positive that I can share it with you. And that maybe from what I am sharing with you about that every reality, there's a reason for it. There's a place that you could take the reality to and elevate yourself from that reality to a higher place. And from my reality of being a widow, of being alone, I have elevated it so far that I have the opportunity to be over here with you, with my ragers. I can be over here with my ragers. I can be at Friday night table with my ragers. I can be at the Shabbatones with my ragers. My reality has become something that I love. I've taken it, I've accepted it, I've identified it, I've concretized it, and I have turned it into a reality that I love. And Rabbi Kassin, again, I'm going to be very happy for you to address that topic in terms of, it's not only from a psychological perspective that I'm a strong person and that I could do it, because that doesn't always work. I don't know, in terms of my mother and her getting older, if I just took it from a psychological perspective, if it would work. I need to know that there's a reason for everything. That Hashem, God, that this is my time to take care of my mother. This is her time. She's aging. It's what is supposed to be. And I'm good with that. And it gives me an opportunity to pray. It gives me an opportunity to connect. It feels very good. So you could take it from both. You could take it from the psychological, emotional perspective, but you could also take it from the spiritual perspective. It's two completely, they're really the same. They end up merging together. But you can take it from either one. So again, I want to give you the opportunity to think about your own personal reality, a difficult one, something that you have to accept your reality, identify, and we all have some reality that we need to accept that is difficult. You should never, ever think in life that somebody else has it better, that everybody else has it better. It's not true. Everybody has something that is difficult for them. Everybody has something that is a challenge for them. Everyone has a reality that is difficult. And nobody has it. Everybody has it. Nobody has it easier. So always know that we are here for you. You're not alone. We're here to support you, just like you're here to support me. Rage is a family. We are all here to support each other. It's a real family. So, Rabbi, what do you think?
I'm really very moved, I would say overwhelmed by your story. even though I heard some of it, but in this context, the first time I heard this. And just maybe to share a thought is that I'm sure that your interpretation of why your husband, Allah Shalom, appeared so strong, accepting reality, and told you that now is your time to do more mitzvahs, is because of his very strong faith. And I'm not arguing with that at all, but I can maybe offer as well another spiritual explanation. He loved you very, very much. And it's very natural for even a person with very strong faith to doubt and to be disarrayed, to be in confusion. And when he heard this diagnosis, he was also hit with a truck at that time. But he was courageous enough not to show it to you. And when he was dying, he felt, and maybe even saying to himself the same exact things as you were telling to him, but he loved you so much that he wanted to give you more meaning and more strength. So I think the courage is not only my relationship with Hashem, but how much I care about other people, loved ones. Mm. And he was a courageous person, even in his, most painful time, to really express his love and respect and care for you. And that was his choice under these circumstances.
Very interesting what you're saying, Rabbi. So what you're saying is that out of his love for me, he wanted to create a good future for me. And the way that he was going to create a good future for me was by handing the baton over to me and saying, okay, I wore the crown till now. Here, now it's your turn to wear the crown. And that he was doing that out of love for me. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And that probably was also very powerful for him as well, because when the person is caring for others and thinks about others, probably it is less self-pity. It probably was also indirectly, I'm sure he didn't think about it, but it probably helped him to overcome these difficult times as well. Love heals.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Amazing, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We have people leaving messages. There are many messages, Dr. Faye, on chats. They can also address, or if you want, you can look and see and choose maybe to answer some of them.
And yeah, Julia.
Yeah. It's deep and touching.
Julia wrote, amazing story, and that you are taking your husband's lessons, applying them, passing them on to us, and how he turned his situation into a positive one. He sounds like an incredible person and a tzaddik. You all definitely are the puzzle pieces that came together as a whole to make impactful and influential changes for the people who came across you. I have been telling you this for a while. You have become so incredibly emotionally expressive. I think you've surpassed me. I'm just in awe because not only have you become like in touch emotionally with yourself, but you're able to express it in an incredible way. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Okay, here's a question. What about fighting the reality? A lot of times when faced with a difficulty, we accept the challenge, yet want to change the reality. When do we know to accept the reality or keep the fighting as much as possible to make sure the best outcome happens? That is such an incredible question. I love that question. So the answer is that I don't think there's ever a time that we should fight the reality. I think that it takes too much energy to fight the reality. It takes too much out of us. It's a war that we can't win. How can you fight? How can you fight something that is real? right? Like how I couldn't have fought the reality of Shlomo's illness. I tried. I ran away. I tried to avoid. How many of us run away because we don't want to accept the reality? It's just easier to just let your guard down and just accept the reality. And a lot of times, I know the emotion is very, very scary. It's a lot to accept. It's going to make me cry. How can I accept the reality? It's going to just make me cry. And if I start crying, what we talked about last week, how do I know if I start crying, if I will ever stop crying? Maybe I'll just cry and cry, and the tears will just never stop coming, but they will. But they will. So my answer to that question is it's never about fighting the reality. It's always about just accepting it.
Thank you. I guess as a follow-up question, I guess what I meant to ask is, how do we know what the reality is? Who defines the reality? Like in your husband, he sounds like an amazing tzaddik. I wish I could have met him. What was the reality? That the diagnosis, is it whether it's curable or not, whether it's something to try to treat or not? Like what is the reality that is the reality? Here's a diagnosis, let's fight it, or this is diagnosis and let's not do anything. It's the reality, let's just accept it. That's, I guess, what I meant by like fighting. Accept the reality, but try to do as much as possible to make the best reality. So what?
Yeah. So the reality is, it is what it is. Yes, he had leukemia. That was the reality. That's the reality. You can't fight. You couldn't fight the reality.
I think you got muted by accident. I'm so sorry.
I'm good.
Dr. Faye, I think you got muted.
I'm back. The reality is that he had the cancer. That was the reality. Everything outside of that was not a reality. Everything outside of that was emotion, anticipation. Am I going to get better? Fright. Am I going to die? Sadness. Am I going to lose my whole family? Is my whole family going to lose me? Feelings of powerlessness. I'm not in control over here. It's taken up. I don't have the control. But not for a moment did he give up trying. We did everything. We did bone marrow testing all over the world. We went to so many different doctors. So the reality was the cancer was there. Everything else was the concrete part. What do you do? What can I do? What are the concrete solutions? And we did those till he was gone. Till he was gone.
Thank you.
I actually had a question too. How, like you were saying about his reality and how he changed it into like a positive one. Do you feel like you being a therapist or psychologist and the work that you do maybe had some influence on him? Because I also feel as soulmates, you guys impact and influence each other. Like, do you feel like you were rubbing off on him in that aspect?
I think you love me too much. He was a very, very strong person. I don't think I had that kind of control over him. I think that what Rabbi Katzin said, that really resonates for me, because that was the kind of person that he is, that he really planned in advance. And what Rabbi Katzin said really resonates for me, that in his planning in advance, he was thinking, I'm leaving her alone with all my children and with my grandchildren. Right. I don't want her to fall apart and decompensate, because then everybody will fall apart. I'm going to empower her. I'm going to tell her, yeah, now it's your turn to do this. So, Rabbi Katzin, you didn't know Shlomo, but from what you said, it feels like you knew Shlomo. It feels like you really knew him. I think he had he was very faithful. He had a lot of faith in God, for sure. But if I think about it, I never thought about it that way in all these years.
I know him through you, Dr. Faye, because knowing you, this is who you are as well. Yeah. Because you think about people, you care about others.
Yeah. I remember the guest house. You were saying how he made that whole guest house for you, and to always have people in the story about the things flickering, and Yeah,
Yeah.
that gave me chills.
Yeah.
Moving.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing another one next Shabbos. We're back on.
Yeah,
Yeah. we're
send us the details, please.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, we're back on. But yeah. So what about realities over here? Let's talk about your realities. It doesn't have to be on live. It can always, you can motion not to, but does this resonate for you in terms of your own reality? Do you have a reality that you yourself have to accept, right? Have to identify, have to come up with concrete solutions. And do you have an objective person that you can talk to about your reality so that they could reframe your reality into something that can look different than the reality that you're feeling? Is that possible?
Dr. Faye, is it okay to stop broadcasting?
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.